Come on, let me go.
All right.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So we did come prepared together. A lot of chronology we had to put in place, and so we had to write it down. It's got more of a narrative than it's not like that.
It was the fastest 5 weeks in history.
It worked. Make this as complicated as we can. I just want to say first, the room is full of people who loved us, championed us when we were individuals, and then came alongside and done the same as a couple. So we just appreciate and love you guys. It's so cool.
That's cool.
Having you here, we just like changing people in this room and continue to do so. So, yeah, so, well, so it's going to be kind of a narrative in a way. I don't think so much of a story is just us, but a story of what God can do for anybody, how it can He'll heal you for one. He'll change you. He'll change it for the better. He'll speak to you so you can hear him, and he'll confirm his will for you. And we had that compressed in time like you wouldn't believe. It's just he orchestrated our relationship in such an unbelievable way. Let me just read. I had kind of a word the other day. It's like the Lord crafted our relationship, like he was sculpting it like he would a piece of clay. He sculpted us individually. He shaped us so that he could form us into one. And Kim had confirmed a word a while ago about that. She might mention that a bit. So some of you don't know. So I'm a dentist. I'm absolutely left brain, analytical, scientific, and so if I make a decision, I've got like column 1 and column 2, pros, cons. And so to give you an example, a couple years ago, the last time I bought a camera, right before phones became really good cameras, it took me like 60 days. I mean, and this was just a point and shoot. This was not some big thing. So what happened to me is it took me completely out of myself. So what took me 2 months to buy a camera, I became the person. It took me literally 14 days from kind of beginning of a relationship to proposing. So that's just how unlikely once we got in. So a little background. I was widowed for 4 years when we met. After 39 years of marriage, lived in the same house for 30 years. Worked as dentist for 41 years. 2 kids and 4 grandkids. And last fall, I was thinking I might be ready for a relationship. The thought came into my mind for the first time, really. And I had also the thought that, I don't know how this is going to happen. God's just going to have to surprise me. And I eventually realized I'll just have to be surprised because I don't know how it would work. And so tag team this a little bit.
So my background, I had been single for 20 years. And like Greg, I didn't make such great decisions. And I had not married well the first time. So I had been single and cycled through that thing. If you've been single for any length of time, it's like, I want to be married, I don't want to be married, maybe I want to be married. What would I do with the husband? How would I? I have figured it out. For the last 10 years, I've traveled and done mission work. And so I didn't really know how having a relationship would fit into all of that. And so I was a nurse for 30 years and then did that some while I was doing missions. And I have 3 kids and 8 grandkids. But back 20 plus years ago now, About a year after I had gotten divorced, I had a moment in time when I went, oh, every relationship I've ever had was sick and wrong. That means there's something sick and wrong with me. And so I prayed, and I asked the Lord to make me marriage material. And for a little while, for a couple of years, He put me in a bubble. And it was like, I didn't notice men, men didn't notice me. It was just, the Lord had taken me to Antioch, and Steve was my pastor, and Harvey. And the Lord just put me in this environment that I could be healed and be restored. And Steve and Stacy are really instrumental in my life, because Stacy taught me how to have a backbone, and Steve taught me how to trust and how to love again and how to be loved. And Ann's been fabulous. She's walked through some stuff too. But it was just, 20 years of this cycling through. And so, I don't know how to tell it.
So last year I started having those thoughts of having a relationship again. I didn't know if it was really God or me. It was probably a combination, I suppose. I was starting to feel just more lonely, and I had some prophetic words. Vivian, who some of you know, she constantly said, "There is someone out there for you." And then I just took that generic, like, yeah, I'm not sure. And then Penny, she said, there's somebody, and this person will live in your house, which is interesting. I've been there for 30 years and didn't know how that might work with a wife, a new wife. And so in my head, I didn't really pray. I think it's more or less I shared a thought with the Lord. It was just like praying, but I wasn't asking. I had like this. I've titled here the litmus test for me. So the basic thing was that we're going to have to be the same faith. It's going to be really the same theology. There's, and I think unequally yoke can apply to a wide variety of the Christian faith. And so I've seen that split households just be new domination. So anyway, that was number one. And then I'm thinking, how do you find somebody? Because I thought, do I go to Christian conferences and troll for women? I didn't know what to do. Was there a singles part? So honestly, I had those thoughts. And I thought the Lord's just going to have to surprise me, because I don't know how this is going to work. So, and so other things I had in mind, I thought, I'm medically minded. It'd be cool to have somebody who was medically minded, because there's a lot of life and thoughts that they can share. And I had thought it would be cool to have somebody a little bit younger too, to be honest with you. And so, I just want somebody that was physically attracted to, not just companionship. I wasn't looking for just companionship. So, anyway,
that's good.
that's the thing.
So after I had been cycling through the whole maybe I do, maybe I don't kind of thing, in late summer of 2018, so just short of a year before we met, the Lord really kind of took me to task, and He said, "Do you want to get married or not?" And it was just kind of a firm thing. I knew it was okay, whatever I wanted to do, but it was time to stop being double-minded, and I needed to make a decision.
Good.
And so I took a couple of days and just thought about that and prayed about that, and I decided, yes, I do want to be married. And shortly after that, I started having happily married friends of mine. I was careful who I chose to pray, and asked them to pray that God would wake up my Adam.
Yeah.
And the reason that I asked them to pray that way was I had done what a lot of single women do over the years. I felt like I was a Ruth and I wanted a Boaz. And then I was like, no, I don't want a Boaz. I was like, I want to be a Rebecca and have an Isaac. And I was like, no, I don't want somebody looking for a wife. But I came to a point that I was like, I want you to fashion me for somebody and present me to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's what Greg was referring to, that the Lord fashioned us together.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to be fashioned for somebody specific. I didn't just want to, that'll do. I didn't want to settle.
Yeah.
And I had two things that I really was specific with the Lord about. And well, maybe 3, because with the whole Ruth thing, I was like, I'm not asking nobody to marry me. Like, I'll be single till Jesus comes back. I ain't doing that. But I wanted, if I was going to be married again, I wanted there to be something for the 2 of us to accomplish that one of us couldn't do alone. And the other thing was, years ago, Steve will tell you, he's been praying for a husband for me for a whole lot of years, like almost 20.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Early on, lots of years ago, I realized that Steve was somebody who loved me and had my best interest at heart, and I could trust him. So I started praying, and I was like, Lord, when it happens, I want him to know, and me to know, and Steve to know that it's you. And I didn't want a long courtship. I just wanted to know that we were supposed to get married and get married.
Yeah. You accomplished that.
It all worked out. So after I think about it, after Kim asked the Lord, or said, yeah, I do want to be married, it was about 10 months later that Pat invited me to come to the Tuesday night meetings that Steve's part of, that I guess been going on for a long time. And I asked him the day, what spurred you to do this? I don't know, I just invited you. So, but now I know, it was the Lord. So I came, my schedule only permits me to come to do about 1 a month. They meet every Tuesday, but I can get about 1 a month. So those meetings were instrumental. I think at the second meeting, I was there, Harvey Miller had a word for me. He just looked at me, he says, the best is yet to come. And I thought, well, yeah, that's great, because I heard things about that, about ministry, that things were coming, they're going to grow and flourish maybe. And I thought, that could be personal, I don't know. So I entertained that thought for the first time, and that wasn't long after that I started thinking, I didn't tie those together to be ready for a relationship. And so then that was September. In November, I was on my way to my son's, and on the way was Andy. I had Mike Hutchins was doing the PTSD, and I thought, well, I'll stop and do that. And interesting, I think Misty Knightsville sat in the second row, and Kim was right in front of me, actually. I think, and I just remember thinking there was someone there by herself, and where she's with him as a ministry person or something. Never met, just kind of caught on the corner of my eye. And so the following Tuesday night, it was one of those Tuesday meetings, and we met at the meeting. I said, I thought you were with, how come you're here? I thought you were with the guy that was speaking about PTSD. She says, oh no, I'm from here originally, and so we started to get a little bit acquainted. But she came back to Sedalia frequently. And so,
So that was the first time I had laid eyes on him. And I was standing with a friend of mine at the table where they had food when he walked in the door, and he's dressed very fine. And so we spoke. We didn't really meet. We just kind of spoke to each other, and then he walked away, and I said to Deborah, who was that? And she said, oh, that's Dr. Cleveland. I was like, give me some information. He's not wearing a ring, he's gorgeous. And she's like, oh, I asked Pastor Steve on the way home, because we were all riding together. And so she really covered me well. On the way home, she just nonchalantly asked Steve about Greg, and he gave us about 10 minutes of his history and what a wonderful guy he
we've known
was.
each other for about 20 years at least, I know, so yeah, we went back a ways.
Yeah, that's true. So he's known us both a long time. That is significant.
So the next, I think it was the next meeting was in December, actually, another Tuesday meeting. And I was sitting, and we'd eat and then meet in a circle and just pray and see what the Holy Spirit does. And Pat and his wife Kate were sitting there, so I was sitting right by Kate, and Kim was there someplace up to the right. And at some point, Kate leans over to me and she says, I don't know why I'm saying this, but don't you think she's cute? And she points at Kim. I said, yeah, I do. So, prophetic thing there. So that was interesting. And then that night she was always, her board says you should need to do presentations to people that support your ministry or missions organization. And so she asked me if she would come do a presentation to me about that. So she came to my office a few days later and did the presentation. And I had to work for two things that evening. That two words came: good investment and fertile ground. And so I knew it was definitely if I would miss her, I'm thinking, I don't know, that could maybe be personal too. And so I had that thought. And then when I shared it with her, I didn't share the personal part. I just said, this is about your ministry and you, but I didn't say anything about maybe us. So I give her that much, wonder, okay, where's this going? And then, and I did share with her that the first night, I think, well, we met, but spending time with Pat in ministry, he said to me, you're going to fall in love with little black faces. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And mentioned some missions and maybe short-term things. And so Africa popped in my mind. I mentioned that to her, and then she took that and ran. She's looking for a group to go to Mozambique this fall. So she was on that. Okay.
So when I left that meeting with him, he gave me one of those safe sideways hugs like you do in church, you know? I was like, I fit here. I had it bad. By the time that meeting was over, I knew I had a serious crush. I was 51 years old going, I can't believe I got a crush on somebody like this. So within the next day or two, I was talking to Steve on the phone, and I said, by the way, I have a crush. And he said, who is it? And I told him, and he said, come over here, let's have tea. I want to look in your eyes when you talk about him. And so I was like, wow. So I went and we had tea, and afterwards I was giggling and laughing because I was just like, I can't believe this is so weird to be this old and feel like this. And so I was laughing because I knew now it's December, and in January I was scheduled to leave for Africa and would be gone for a few months. And so I said, I knew that when he did premarital counseling, he did 6 weeks. And I said, would you do 6 weeks of premarital counseling in 3 weeks? And he said, if you marry him, I'll marry you tomorrow. And so I was like, okay. So I must have picked a good one this time. Praise God. So then I go to another one of those Tuesday meetings, and Vivian corners me before the meeting starts. And she said, do you know Greg? And so she starts talking to me about, she thought we'd be a cute couple, and I should pursue that. And so I just let her talk, didn't say anything. And after the meeting, she comes back and she said, if you're interested, you're probably going to have to ask him out because he's really shy. I'm thinking, what is with this? I'm not asking anybody out.
So, and it's interesting what I've come across, just that it's been just pertaining to this the last few days. I got a word from someone in December from Sean Pastor, and part of it was he said that it's 1 Timothy 5:17 says your reward will be great, and that's cool. I didn't know specifically what that might mean, and last night I came across a word that it was from the well. It said the well, and Sylvia had a word. It was the 29th of maybe December, possibly, and it was God will move powerfully in relationships. The more we connect, the more power will come. And I noticed it was kind of about small groups, but I thought that kind of fits couples too, maybe. So that was neat. So that was another thing that fed in. The Lord he was honest, and there have been words that have been spoken over me and the world in general. That 2020 would be a year of new beginnings. Big surprise was coming. There's one, and the best was yet to come, etc. And one other was expect the unexpected, and so. And Pat had another word for me at some point in there, and he said that Papa is moving outside the definition of what you presently do or have done. New territory, new authority in the prophetic and the healing and teaching. And then, and I heard for myself not long ago, I said, I heard a new year, a new leaf, and a new page. So I thought, well, this is interesting. And my head wasn't in the personal thing yet at all. So I mean, I'm thinking, well, this is going to be life ministry or something. So
as we came into January, I was planning a healing school in Sedalia, and Greg and I had enough conversation that he was working with some people in his church so they would be involved, and we had started texting back and forth, ministry related, not really anything else. But on the 13th of January, we had a meeting about that healing school. And so Pat and Kate and Brandy, another girl from church, and Greg came up. and met with the team from Antioch. And then afterwards, the 5 of us went out to dinner. And so we're sitting there talking, and I'm running my mouth like I can do sometimes, and said some things. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, wrong thing to say. I just, just not appropriate stuff I should have not said. So then the next day, I had to send text out or try to call people and apologize for not behaving properly. But then we had the healing school, and you had to tell about when you walked in.
But about that, I get this text the next day apologizing, and I thought that's somebody pretty cool character to humble himself and apologize. That she didn't need to do that. And I thought so. That was a check in the good column there. So the healing thing was going up, and we got out to eat. We came back, and I had this new hat, and people must like this hat. They're complimenting me on this hat, and so I walked in and such a nice hat, and she goes, "Yeah." It's like, I thought, well, that was interesting when she said that. So my answer was a little more.
He's looking fine. So we're doing the healing school. It was Friday night and all day Saturday and Saturday evening. And Saturday afternoon, I had another speaker come in, and he didn't speak very long. It was like less than an hour. And so I was praying. I was like, Lord, what do you want to do with this extra time? How do you want to fill that? And the Lord told me I needed to share my testimony. And He doesn't have me do that very often. And but I know when He does, somebody really gets touched. And so just that the history of that is my ex-husband is a pedophile, and my kids were his primary victims. So sharing the walk through that. And so I was like, Greg is here. I don't want to share this now. And the Lord said, there are people here that need to hear this. And in 20 years, I had never dealt with shame over all the stuff that had happened. But that day, shame was all over me. And I did not want to share my testimony. I didn't want Greg to hear that. I thought, if the Lord works something out and we do become a couple, I can talk about it then. But I don't want him to hear it now. I'm trying to make a good impression.
Right.
And but I was obedient to the Lord, and the ministry was amazing. What the Lord did that afternoon was pretty incredible. But everybody left, went to dinner, and I went in a room by myself, shut the door, and prayed and cried and tried to compose myself. And when the dinner time was over, I get a call on my phone from, I don't know if it was you or Pat, somebody called and said, we're locked out, we can't get back in the building. And so I went down and opened the door and let them in. And as we were walking back up the stairs, Greg asked about my kids, how they were doing at this point in life after all this time. And it struck me that no one else, when I've shared my testimony, nobody's ever asked me anything, and certainly not about my kids. And there was just this sense of peace and safety. It was like, no matter what, if anything ever happens or not, this is a safe guy. And so there was just this real sense of peace that was really neat in all of that. So there's that. Then the following Tuesday, we're going to another meeting, and Steve says, you need to sit by him tonight. I have to let the Lord orchestrate these things. I can't just do this. And so when we got there, the meeting was upstairs, and we had dinner downstairs. So all the chairs are sitting in a circle. I put my stuff down, and we all go downstairs. Greg came in later.
And Vivi and I walked at the same time and set our Bibles down to chip side by side.
Yeah. So they come in, and we're talking while we're standing in line to get ready to eat. And when it was time for me to get my food, it's kind of like buffet style, we stopped talking, and I got my food, and then I turn around and I'm looking at this table, and it's a long rectangle, open rectangle of tables. And I'm looking at the table going, what do those sit by me. And so right on the corner, there were 2 chairs. Everything either way down the table was full unless you walked all the way to the end of the group of tables. And so I was like, well, Lord, it's up to you. And so there's like 5 people between us. So I sat down and just waited, and he's talking to somebody else. And when he got his food, he came over and sat by me.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty excited about that. And later, my friend on the way home, she says, so what's up with you and Dr. Cleveland? I was like, oh no, she said he made a beeline for you. I was like, yay! Yeah. So then we go upstairs, and as I come into the sanctuary, Vivian says,
Vivian leaps into action, so Vivian did.
she says, here, come sit by me. And I was like, well, okay. So she sits me down in this chair, and I'm like, my stuff is over there, and I'm looking for my stuff, and it's across the circle. And then she takes off, and I'm like, where are you going? Because I realized Greg is on the other side. I'm like, come back here and sit down. So you got to tell your part of that.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like 8th grade. This one was buzzing around those people, and she said, you go here, you go here, you go here. And she's all of a sudden, boom, and Kim's sitting by me. This big flourish. And Vivian's poofed away into a cloud of dust at that point. So she's in it, yeah, so Vivian's safe for a while. So
At that point, we had texted a fair amount, and we'd only had one conversation that wasn't ministry related, and it was actually started out that way. But it got funny, and we were talking about German food and lederhosen. Lederhosen.
Okay.
I was going to a party, I suppose at my birthday party in a Mexican restaurant. She said something about wearing a sombrero. I said, I'll wear a sombrero to a Mexican restaurant as soon as I wear lederhosen to a German restaurant.
And I had to look up lederhosen because I didn't know what that was. And I said, with these guys dancing, and it just got to be real
Chevy Chase European vacations.
So we're sitting in this meeting, and somebody gets a prophetic word, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. But every time they'd say it, and there's all these words coming, and every time somebody would say this, all I could think was lederhosen. Why am I thinking it? So I just leaned back and told them, every time they say that, all I can think is lederhosen. So then we had a little giggle about that. So that was the last meeting that I was at before I was leaving for Africa. And Greg asked me that night about my prayer team, if I had a team of intercessors. And I said, well, kind of, but I haven't got them all organized. Do you want to do that? And so we started working on that. And I was really excited because then I had an excuse to talk to him for the next 3 months while I was gone.
Yes.
Coming on my team. And then he's wearing that hat and coat. And we're standing by the door before we left, and I'm just like,
I'm still a little oblivious to what was going on in her head too, at that time. I'm just a little behind the ball. So she leaves, and apparently the next week or two I started having thoughts about this. Walking, I need to pursue a relationship with this person, but then again I've got like in my head these columns. I'm like, okay, she's gone out of the country most of the time. She doesn't live in Missouri. Really, she mostly lives in Pennsylvania. And Antioch's our churches. When she's here, I'm heavily involved with my church and my family here in Missouri. So those are things in my head. And so then I was over at Pat Gates one evening, must have been shortly after I was having those thoughts, and I said something about that to Pat. He goes, just don't dwell on the possible problems, just dwell on the possible good things. And that was perfect. I was able to put that out of my mind and just only concentrate on what could be good. So that was huge, his wisdom on that. So, and amazingly, within the next, it was happening before I spoke, probably every one of those things was answered, and it was just erased. I mean, it became a non-issue. Amazing. Yeah. So.
The Lord had already been dealing with me for about a year about different things that he had concerns about. Things like, for 10 years I've been going to other countries, and every time it was time to come back to the States, I would just grieve. I didn't want to be in the States. I wanted to be anywhere but here.
And for about the last year, when it was time to come home, it was okay. And then the time just before this trip in January, I was actually ready to come home. There was a joy and an excitement about being back in the States. So the Lord had shifted my heart, and He did it slowly, but it was like, okay, I'm ready to do trips and not just live somewhere else. And I had a board meeting in October of last year, and lots of things. I'd spent some time in Missouri, and it was feeling like home again. And so I was really feeling the Lord draw me back to Missouri, and I wasn't real sure what that looked like because my ministry is based in Pennsylvania and all of that. So I was just feeling that longing. And I wanted a tiny house. I'm single, I travel between Pennsylvania, Missouri, and South Carolina. It's like, I don't need stuff, I just need a little house. And so I was determined to get a tiny house, but I kept, every time I would go in a store, I was drawn to the kitchen stuff, like I'm nesting. I want to decorate a house, and I want to do all this stuff. And I'm like, what? You can't do all that with a tiny house. You do just 2 spoons, 2 forks, 2 knives. But I was really drawn to that. And then something very strange started happening, because Antioch's been home since 1999. I walked in and never walked out, just always been home. But I was feeling like I didn't fit there anymore, and I didn't really know what to do with that. That was really strange for me.
And great for me. So then another Tuesday meeting, it was February 18th, I think, and we were breaking up, I think, and Steve walked over to me, and I don't remember a lot of the conversation, but at one point he says, and Kim really likes you, and apparently, and I didn't remember this either, because anyway, I laid out my list, she's this, but she kind of meets all those requirements, and then that time 6-year-old granddaughter, a couple years before that, she's kind of interested in walks hand in hand with Jesus kind of kid, and she walked up to my son and his wife decided they would try to have children, and they told anybody, and so little Harper walks up to her and she says to her, is there a baby in your tummy? And she's like, what? So she was freaked out by that, later shared that with us when she became pregnant. So then about, a month before this, she walks up to me, or she says to me, are you going to get married again? Just a 6-year-old out of the blue. And I thought, that's interesting. Her little face. I'm like, okay, that was in my... So apparently I share all this with Steve, like boom, 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 and blew him away, maybe, I don't know. And so, so Kim met all the prerequisites.
So I was in Africa, and it's like midnight here and 8 in the morning there, and I get a text from Steve that says, I talked to Greg tonight. I'll tell you all about it when I talk to you again. So I texted back and said, can I call you now? So he starts telling me that he threw me under the bus. And I was like, well, okay. And he told me Greg really liked me too. And that when he started talking about me, that Greg started grinning ear to ear, and he's telling him all of the stuff about Harper and that I met all the prerequisites, and he said Steve was
sounds more clinical than it really was.
but Steve said he was so surprised because he just started talking about marriage. So I was like, well, that works for me. And then that was on the 18th and 19th, and on the 21st.
We've only got like 8 pages left. So you guys we'll take a break if we need to.
Now it gets really fun. So this is the 21st of February. And so that happened on the 18th. And the 21st, I realized I have 5 days left in my journal. I journal all the time. And I said, Lord, I have 5 pages left. That's about 5 days. I want you to do something, and you make Greg say something. And so I just kind of left it there, sort of.
Let's see.
On the 24th.
Oh, yeah, so those 5 days, I did not respond to her. But then actually
It was only 2.5 days.
it was but I think you texted me and said, hey, Steve throws another bus, or something like that.
He
And
really
then-
loves us because he throws
Yeah,
us
she
under
did,
the
yeah.
bus.
Yeah, and, well, yeah, actually that night he told me about Kim, he said, so I love both you guys, and, something about, I kind of get a sense of approval, and he says, and I'll just leave it to you, and he just turned and walked away. That's how I remember him, like, no, very good. So then, this is Tuesday the 24th, when Kim, I get that text, it was like we were off and going. We for 8 hours, we've gone back and we texted on and off for 8 hours that day. It was crazy. And I mean, I wasn't in that just let's go out, have a date, have fun. No, this is going to end up in marriage, or there's no reason to pursue a relationship at this point. Not ever really. But, so it's not going to be something casual. So, and at some point in that, I've got a fireplace in the house, and I said, that'd be really nice to be sitting with you by the fire. And that apparently piqued her interest some. And then, so she, yeah, so.
That was the point I knew we were a couple. It was like, this is a done deal. And from there we started planning our first date. We thought would be a pseudo date with lots of chaperones.
Not intentionally, but we're going to be at Gary's church. You guys can do your dual thing. And I think this couple's coming. I thought there's going to be 20 of us for our first kind of date thing.
And so I was staying with some people in South Africa, and I'm, like a schoolgirl, all giddy and so my host starts helping me make wedding plans, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do that. And we've had 8 hours of conversation, that's all. So, we, for the next 12 days, we texted each other morning and night, and in that time we had 2 phone calls, but just lots of texting. And there were times when we really felt the presence of the Lord, and like at the same time we would both, like, I get the crunches, and stuff like that would be happening.
I was at my office one night doing something, and we were texting, and I just felt like the presence of God. I texted, I was like, never before. This is really strong. She goes, oh, I'm feeling it too now. And then it just grew in both of us. It was just crazy Holy Spirit confirmation.
Yeah, so lots of confirmations as we talked. And we talked about things that would have, if we were face to face, would have taken us months to talk about, because we both would have hesitated, or in texting, it was like, well, you can just say it, or you can write it out and then erase it and reword it.
And just say, if you don't have to wait for it, you're not looking in somebody's eyes like, oh, then how's that going to go?
Like, well, here it goes. So there was laughter and there were tears. We talked about some really deep issues, some really heart-wrenching issues at times. And when I did things that were embarrassing, Greg covered me. At one point I sent him a meme with this little cartoon princess. He got caught on the phone call and he wasn't responding, but just before he didn't start responding, I sent this meme of this little princess going, tell me more. And then he doesn't respond.
That's a long phone call. I didn't realize you could read your text while you're on the phone, apparently.
So I'm dying of embarrassment, and my friend was in Uganda, and I started talking to her about what I've done, and I don't know how to get it off there before he comes back. But I was texting him instead of her.
I was supposed to get this text. It's about being embarrassed by this.
So I get the 2 texts off that I'd sent to her, and he comes back and says, I don't think that last text was for me. No, and I'm just dying. And then he says, cute meme, by the way. And I was like,
What was it? So at one point I'm thinking, there's a little bit of an age difference. I knew that. So I finally said, okay, I got to ask him, do you know how old I am? And then,
I said, yeah, I looked that up, like, after the first time I met you, or before the second time I met you.
she Facebooked me right off the bat.
Facebook, Google, I stopped everything.
So it was, so that was all. I am not by nature a bold person. It was crazy. The Holy Spirit almost asked, went way deeper than ever I talked to probably anybody. And then I got this, I started feeling this affection. It was really interesting. We were just texting, I was like, I'm starting to feel this love thing starting. That was interesting. And then I had God thing. And then I'll smell things sometimes. If there's the presence of the Lord, I'll smell like wood burning, something like a sweet incense smell, different things. And so we had a Wednesday night meeting at church, and I'm driving back home, and I get this flower smell. And I thought, oh, that's good. What is that? It's familiar. And it went away. I got almost on my smell again. I thought, oh, that's honeysuckle. My parents said they'd grown up big vines outside of their porch, and it was just a neat fragrance. And so I don't know if I texted you first or looked it up. I can't remember, but
I think you looked it up.
I looked it up and I probably lost what that was. But the definition was, it's like a romantic affection and some other things like that. It was very interesting. And so I text her and she says, that's like one of my favorite flowers. The Holy Spirit at work still. And at some point I had a word, just told her to dream big, have great expectations. And she said, yeah, just remember that you said that. And then I started. And then I started like missing her, although I never, we never really one-to-one had a relationship. And I said, it's possible to miss somebody without really ever having initial contact, which was interesting. And then I'm not a music person per se. I would get songs and song lyrics that fit whatever was going on. It was just crazy. So obviously it was not me. It was the Lord just doing some wild stuff. And so she was going to fly in. Her schedule had been going up and down and changed. And so she was going to come in, and it was so on a Sunday, day 13, basically. I was going to pick her up from the airport, and I knew that we were just best friends at that point. And I thought there's got to be some physical spark, something beyond just friendship. Because I just like innocence, not companionship and friendship. I was looking for just one marriage, but. And I thought I heard the Lord say something to the effect like, this is yours to lose. That's not, just yours to screw up. Did he say that? But yeah, apparently it was. This way.
So he picks me up at the airport.
We decided, she never had German food, so I was going to introduce her to German food.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Later
it's our first date. And we walk into this.
I threatened to wear it to the airport to pick her up. Which I'm not that well, and she said, I'm so glad you didn't do that.
He brought me a rose instead.
I was close.
So we walk into this restaurant, and I'm thinking, where do we sit? And the waitress takes us to this big table, a big U-shaped table. And I'm looking at that table thinking, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I go in the ladies' room and I'm like, oh Lord, please let him put the menus where they're supposed to be because I don't know how to do this. Where do you sit? And I come back and he had set us in the corner, so we were kind of sort of facing each other but beside each other. So that was really neat. And then we shared our first meal together. We shared a meal, which was really cool. And then we went and met his daughter.
And then we shared our first kiss, I believe, at that point.
Because when we were texting back and forth, I was thinking, I had this firm stance, I'm not kissing till I get to the altar. And I didn't get to tell him that. He started saying, I'm not a proponent of that.
We talked about everything. Almost.
I was like, So the Lord had to talk fast, But, so yeah, we shared our first kiss. And we went and met his daughter and her family. And Weston was four at the time. So I'm sitting on the sofa, and Greg's playing with the kids, and Weston comes over and he leans across the little footstool thing, and he says, are you just going to sit there? I was like, oh, yes. But now we have lots of fun. We wrestle and play and do all kinds of stuff. I found favor with them. It's great. And so then the next day, we went to dinner with Steve and Anna.
Yeah, it was Monday. And so, at some point, I don't know if the ladies at the table, but Steve says, lean over something, and he says to me, he's got this kind of uncomfortable look, and he goes, I don't know whether I should or how I should, or like, you're not getting any younger, right? And I said, I've had that thought. I've had that thought the last few months or so. I understand what you're saying. And so then that was Monday, and then it had. I guess it was. Oh, and at some point, Kim says, "Do you ever journal?" I said, "No, I kind of some, but not really." And so I felt prompted to do that, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is the deal. I mean, it's been 2 weeks, and so I just asked the Lord. I said, "Can you know after just 2 weeks?" I heard really clearly, but it's not just 2 weeks. Time has been compressed. I am at work here. Normal rules are suspended. Natural laws are suspended. I have a plan. My hopes and desires will be met. But that's confirmation. So,
Wow.
so I knew that I knew. That was like day 13, which is wow.
Awesome.
So the next day,
14.
I was going to work on my teeth. Just what you want when you just started dating somebody.
I said, I'm going to have to check your teeth probably before I can. The movie's about horse training and all that. We talked about lots of stuff.
So we knew we wanted to spend some time that evening visit. We both had different meetings to go to, and so I had my appointment in the afternoon, so he looks at my teeth and does all that. And then I went over to his house to wait for him to come home from work. And I walk in, he had loaned me a car, and so I pull in the garage, and I come in the garage door, and I just stood in the hallway. I was like, yeah, it feels okay here. And I literally walked into every room in the house and asked the Lord, how does it feel here? I was certain we were going to get married. I didn't know when or how that was going to happen, but I was just like, in my mind, it was a done deal. And so I went every room, and I would just stand there and ask the Lord. And it was like, this is good, this is okay, until I got to the master suite. And I couldn't step across the threshold. And I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this. 30 years of memories, 30 years of good memories in this room, and how would that be for him? And so it wasn't so much for me, because I'm like, you're going to move into a house somewhere, somebody's lived there before, so that didn't bother me, but I was concerned for him and what kind of emotions that would be for him. And so he called just before he left work to tell me he's 3 minutes, his office is 3 minutes from the house. And before we got off the phone, he said, how do you feel in the house? And I said, oh, it's fine. So I was like, good. And so then we visited that evening. I went to the Tuesday evening meeting, and he went to his elders meeting. And then we come back to his house. You want me to tell you what
You're doing well.
Okay. So we come back, we met in his house after our meetings, and it's a little after 10. And full moon out. Yeah,
there's a big window there that this cool full moon shining down. Fireplaces go on that point.
Yeah, so it's very romantic. And we're sitting there, and he starts talking.
And actually, in my head, I knew that it was right. And that's all I actually imagined. That, go ahead.
We say I love you for the first time, and he proposed.
Wow.
So I wasn't driving there from the elders meeting. I'm going to get this all figured up and tell her, Lord, I'm going to propose. No, it just happened. So it was, but it was,
Yes.
It was good. Yes, she did. So I didn't know she was waiting. She'd been waiting for 3 months to finally get to that question. So I finally caught up with her and the Holy Spirit. So then, and that just freaked out most of our world. People, there were people like Lynn and Jolene. They were like, "Yeah, it's good and bad game, but yeah." I'd be like, "You what?" And my kids, son and daughter, were like, "We trust you, but we don't know this person. You're engaged." Well, that was later.
I was watching online going, yes.
No, so we decided we had to tell him. So we drove down to Jefferson City, where my son lives, and we told him they hadn't met yet either.
Yeah, the first time.
And by the way, we're engaged. He goes, "Oh, that's nice." You can just see it. Oh, I know what this looks like. So we went to bed. Her son and family, restaurant in Columbia, and they seemed okay.
And my kids were like, good, take her.
And then there was a shopping center, and we decided we'd go ring shopping on Monday. This was Saturday night in Kansas City someplace, and something about a mall was in Columbia that was still open. And I said, you want to look at a dress? She said, no, I'm going to look at a ring. So,
May as well check them all out.
and she had certain one of them. A couple of jewelry stores were closed, and this one was open, and they had a special thing. Anyway, it fell into absolute place. It was perfect. This guy said, we can put it together for you tonight. This person was there from the diamond place or something. They said, go drink coffee, find a coffee shop. It's 10 o'clock at night. They said the mall was closed. We're sitting there with these 5 people, all excited that you're going to sell us a ring, I guess. But they seem excited about us. And so we found this coffee shop, and then Kim said about wearing it in church somewhere. I said, well, I'm telling my daughter, you can't wear it in church. You can't hear that you got this ring. So we're in a coffee shop in Columbia at 10 or 10:15.
Yeah.
And I called her, and they'd met the week before. And I said, so here's the deal. I told her, she goes, so is there something like saved code word you need to be telling me right now or something? Because I said, I haven't been kidnapped, I haven't been cursed, this is it. She goes, are you sure? It's okay. But, so kids were completely shocked. And so we decided at some point in there that we would make, I remember because of schedule too, I think we could get married in the fall, and that's a long time. So
Yeah, I had lots of trips planned.
we decided to get married on April 26th, literally 4 weeks later. And there was a point where they said, okay, now only 10 people can come. I thought, that's not even part of our family, so I don't know how we're going to do that. And then, I'm not sure when that fell in, but on March 31st, you have 30 days to get a marriage license and use it. And so I called the courthouse on the 31st of March, and they're closed. That's where I called the second. I called 5 courthouses. I had the map, Google map of Missouri, like, where are the counties? I'm going to just keep calling it. And so finally somebody goes, the courthouse in Callaway County, which is Fulton, north of Jeff City, has them. So I called them, it's like noon on Tuesday, whatever it was. And they said, yeah, we got them. I said, well, we're coming, just stay there. We'll be there like whatever it was, 2 hours. So we got there, and they were coming out to us, the car at that point. She brings out the license, took our picture. They were all excited for us there. We got about 4 blocks from the courthouse, and King goes, they got my wrong address on this. So we called back, they redid it, and we almost, had a non-valid potential license there. And so we're driving back almost through Sedalia, and Sean, the pastor, calls. He texts her. He goes, they're doing I don't know what the term is, shelter in place, Johnson County, starting tomorrow at noon. So this is in the afternoon on Wednesday, and it's going to be April 1st. Yeah. Okay, so it's not going to work to really shelter together. We can't really shelter apart. So there's just no, we just need to get married. So she called, I think, Steve, and that conversation.
I said, can you marry us tonight or in the morning? No. And he said, yeah, let me call you back. And so we made a plan for the next morning.
So then we're in Sedalia, and I have a ring, I guess, and so she's got a ring, and so I went to the jewelry stores, Reed & Sons, and I looked at rings, didn't like those, and I said, do you have any of those $3 rubber rings? She goes, no, we have those $18 rubber rings. And so she made 18 Reed & Sons $1 rubber ring. I think they're like 6 for $10 at Walmart. I had a ring, and so. And we're deciding the date was either March 31st or April 1st. And I was thinking, this is my left brain again, saying, I can remember April 1st really well. At the end, I don't remember what day March ends on, so we went for April 1st, which... Yeah.
That is why.
That's why I did. That's it.
So the next morning, we go to see Nancy.
Oh, and these guys have just a beautiful, I don't know if that's arts and crafts, beautiful home. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool to get buried in their house? Like, I don't know, the church is okay, but there's not going to be anybody there. And so they graciously, bless you their house.
So Steve officiated, and Stacy and Ann were our witnesses. And on, what was it, noon, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the morning, we got married in front of their fireplace. And we had a lemon buns cake. It was really good for our wedding cake, and Welch's sparkling grape juice.
They did it really cool. It was neat. They really set that up nicely.
It was really
Last
nice.
moment.
And we put the wedding on Facebook Live, and we've had
Countless.
multiplied hundreds of people like, we saw your wedding.
Yeah, so cool.
So yeah, so the silver lining to the whole COVID thing is that we had a 8-week honeymoon. I didn't work for 8 weeks. And just, I went in on Wednesday and saw emergency, so that wasn't terrible. We got to know each other. I mean, I had the realization. I don't know how many weeks it had been that there's going to be somebody living here with me. I hadn't thought that part. So, I had a prophetic word a few years ago, and it was hold on to your house loosely. And I heard the Lord say, and I thought, well, I invited some people who were going to have different meetings were happening in my house, and I'm thinking, people are going to be there, this place is going to get torn up or whatever. And then after a couple of years, I thought, they're not tearing anything up. I wonder what that word meant. Well, then I realized, I don't know if I came home the first day and everything was off the walls in one room, possibly. That's this. There's somebody else that needs to make this her home, and so we were remodeling, stuff's going on, stuff's coming in. So that's what that word meant. I had no clue what that was going to be, but that's pretty cool. And that's it. I think it was Vivian gave me a really cool word. It was after we'd been married a while. That was basically that Kim was God's gift to me, a reward, God's reward to me, and it was very cool and pretty.
So the whole issue with the master suite, we did talk about that, and Greg had gotten some peace some months before about that, and so.
Yeah, it was a non-issue. I told you that in my life there's like chapter 1 and chapter 2 now, and there's no conflict between them. It's the Lord Holy Spirit.
So now the house that was so beautifully decorated and full of furniture is looking pretty naked.
A guy comes in the day to look at something and work on it. He goes, "Are you moving in or moving out here?" Barren.
But as we're remodeling, we've given away a lot of furniture and window coverings and stuff off the walls. And we're still waiting for contractors and painters and designers to come in and help make it look pretty again. But it's been really neat because he's been really awesome about letting me make it mine, ours.
Wow.
So,
Awesome.
he's been amazing. He really does love me like Christ loves the church.
That's awesome.
He's so good to me. And so patient and gentle and kind.
Yeah, and she has truly been my reward. She couldn't love me better. She loves me well, and I'm just blessed and highly favored,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Hallelujah.
I know this is about us, but it's about what the Lord will do. And I know He speaks to everybody. He's speaking today, but He'll speak to you in an extra special way sometimes. I mean, He did us; it was above and beyond normally what I've received from the Lord. So, but if anybody would like prayer specifically for spouse, we'd be glad to pray to impart to you what we've received, or anything where you need the Holy Spirit to talk to me anywhere in a special way. We'd be glad to pray for you. So.
I'm coming up here for my daughter.
Yeah.
She's on vacation right now, so. She's been praying.
That's good, Dennis. That's good. Stand in.